Alright, I guess the subject's going to be Nietzsche for a little while. Will to power and beyond good and evil. Two concepts I guess I'll deal with. And deal with the whole Nietzsche idea. You know, this idea of nihilism. This idea that Nietzsche is a philosopher of some kind. Which, yes, I'm mocking. Because he was rude, incredibly rude. This is the irony of these pretentious, sensitive souls who, can't take the heat of the kitchen, and yet they're Nietzschean, which is hilarious, because Nietzsche was a horrifically rude, obnoxious, reckless son of a bitch. I mean, He was so sloppy in his critique of other authors that I'm sure once in a while they must have showed up at his house and he smacked him in the face because he was a cheap short artist. The simplistic argumentation, the totally illegitimate paraphrases of their arguments, it was grotesque. I read especially the quotes regarding Darwin, and it was almost hilarious. Like somehow Darwin wouldn't be able to counter-argue his nonsense, in about 14 milliseconds. But anyway, it's just this Nietzschean notion. So I'll deal with that part, I guess, first of the fact that evolution was somehow the reverse. Like it wasn't a survival or a struggle of, say, improving our alpha-style machinery. And that is the guiding force for natural selection. It clearly is. The exceptional becomes the herd. Okay, the exception drives its future. Okay, but it's always in a present of not being in that exceptional form. The exception is always a byproduct of its improvement. Obviously, the improvement can't be the car on the street. The new model can't be on the street until the new model has a chance to compete with the old models. Obviously. So obviously, the thing that exists will always seem mediocre compared to the improvable that will show up. So the masses are always in deficit to their next improved model. The black and white TV, yes, is in deficit to the color TV. Duh. Okay, that's the nature of change. And when it comes to this argument of, when he deals a little bit in the human scope, that's when the ball game completely changes, because obviously then it's about the scheming mind and not necessarily a physical body. But we can see that, even when the Europeans came to North America, the strength of both physically was there. They had their attributes. There still had to be physically strong people. It wasn't like they were substantially weakened. They had both become substantially stronger in many respects. Bigger, healthier, and here living in very different environments. And another component of that is the chance circumstances, the unexpected, so to speak. So much of our destiny has been dictated by microbiology, and yes, so much of success and failure for human gene types has been dictated by the fact that some humans killed other humans with the aid of merely being immune to a bacteria they had previously exposed themselves to, and so had become immune to. And that gave them a strength. But it's a strength, not a weakness. So again, strength won, not weakness. But anyway, so this will to power thing gets, these are nice poetic words, but they don't really say anything. So the concept would be is that we aren't a product of the properties of our nature, say just our drives, that we have these simple drives that we can describe. Instead, Nietzsche would say, let's pretend we don't know what hunger is, we don't know what horny is, we don't know its function or purpose, why it exists, and let's just pretend it's all about some ego thing and call that a need for power, a control. Well, control is a tricky word, right? And freedom is a tricky word. Both these words don't have much meaning. I'd say freedom has none. Because what we mostly want, usually, is freedom from somebody else's interference. Freedom from somebody else exercising their freedom to impose on us. Freedom to impose on us. Freedom from somebody else's prison. So that doesn't really go anywhere. That kind of conversation about control. Of course we want control. Duh. Yeah, I mean, jeez. Who could possibly argue that the end result is if you need something, you want control over the thing that produces what you need. The environment produces food. It produces things to have sex with. Obviously, we'd like to control that environment so we can have the things that we desire. But we can understand that the actual mechanism of our desire is very different than some sort of power thing. We're not willing for power, we're willing for possession. If we have possession, you don't want power. We see what people do when you give them everything. They don't will to power, they will to squander. They're so distracted by their pleasure dome that they don't even think about doing something that would show power, that would represent power, that would be an expression of their power. Let's see. So, it's just again, it's just wordplay. Yes, we will we're selfish organisms, but we're capable of understanding the context of that personal motivation and the context of the fact that we live in herds or tribes and the fact that we live in a speciesdom and the fact that we live in a lifedom. Okay, we can understand all these kingdoms that we live in, and we can understand our role to play in all of them. So this doesn't really go anywhere. Alright, so his critique of religion was again just reckless and sloppy. Of course there's no God, but to draw the conclusion that because there's no God, we have no source of knowledge of good and evil is absolutely preposterous. It doesn't, what is that founded on? There's perfectly rational reasons to accept something like do unto others as you'd have others do unto you. There's certain logic to it. Darwin defended that logic in the fact that you're likely to survive if you can make these unspoken deals between you and the world. If you can charm each other, you're more likely to get through this gauntlet if you have allies rather than enemies. I'm supposed to be running. Sorry. Yeah, I'll get back to this and such. Alright, I'm back. Let's see, where did we leave off? I think somewhere around Darwin or something, right? Nietzsche, Darwin, I don't know. The weak will inherit the earth. Alright, anyway. So this nihilism comes out of this fact that they say, okay, there's no God, so therefore we can't even imagine ethical dynamics. That we can't understand not only our origin, which is, okay, we're a biological machine, we have a scheming intellect that allows us to navigate the world, to gain advantage, to win a competitive struggle for survival. I don't think Nietzsche could possibly unravel that into anything but the truth. He could say there's no reality, but it's the truth. We evolved on this planet, and we have certain properties based on that evolution. And we have these mechanisms of desire. So we have will to desire, not will to power. and gaining the desire, satisfying the desires, which are primarily food and sex. And then the ego was built on top of the mechanism of mostly sex, I suppose, to do this, within the troop alpha male kind of thing. This not only take care of your young, and to some extent, at least not eat them, have enough caring senses not to destroy your prodigy, but also a contest within the circle of your connected group, where you would compete with each other to decide what constituent properties are going to be manifested in the young. And that's a truth. And so Nietzsche's response to some evidence like that is to say some flippant thing like, oh yeah, well everybody knows that, men and women will have sex, on the subway or whatever. Even though there's no subways back then, but you know what I mean. He made some comment like it is routine for men and women to have casual sex, and that somehow produces offspring. And that would have to be the logical conclusion. And obviously the logical conclusion would be that no, most of that casual sex took place even back in Nietzsche's day, in the context where people did understand what pulling out was, and they did other things in their sexual behavior. They mitigated against pregnancy, let's say. And if the woman ended up with child in a reckless manner, they often figured out what herbs to take to make them not with child. But anyway, the point being that most children were not produced out of some sort of marriage contract type thing. So his argument is bogus on that level. And that most sex isn't reckless sex, and that most sex has proven through history, proven by his time already, that the conquerors, the kings, the emperor types, fathered thousands of children. The dominant males, the alpha males, would father thousands. And, as they say that whatever, Ivan the Terror Bull, whoever the fuck it is, fathered half of China or whatever. So, not Ivan, but, the other guy. Anyway, so, clearly, his sloppy rhetoric is just that, sloppy rhetoric. It's not a counter-argument. It can be disproven easily. And yet these people hold it up like it is something as solid as the Golden Rule. And it's not. It's just a silly Nietzscheism. And when you do a little bit of picking at Nietzsche, it all turns to shit. It's a veil of fog and mysticism, okay, and poking fun at religion. And that's sort of the joke. And this whole idea of questioning everything. Yes, you question the ignorance of the past. That's your job, okay, certainly, is to question some notion of what you know to be unreliable sources. Yes, you question unreliable sources. All right, but now we have instrumentality that's pretty reliable. We have photographs, and we have radar, and we have sonar, and we have all kinds of other mechanisms that give us reliable explanations. We can go find the syphilis microbe. We don't have to believe in evil spirits or ether trapped or some other kind of nonsense. We can understand microbiology, and it's a fact. It's not a fantasy. It's not a fable. It's not doubtable. We know what it is. This certain disease syndrome is going to be created by this certain pathogen. So Nietzsche's out of luck in deconstructing that into an uncertainty. And so then, getting to the beyond good and evil part, this idea that there is the progress of human understanding takes you to some wonderland where there is no consequentialism, where there is no cause and effect related to anything of a value. And it just doesn't make any sense. The correct statement would be beyond good and bad, not good and evil. Evil is not the opposite of good. Okay, I mean, it just isn't. Evil is the opposite of something beyond just good. Can't think of the word right now, but it would have to be something willfully and deliberately and intentionally generous, perfect almost. Perfectly, a perfect kind of good in terms of both intent and result. To come up with a correlate to evil, which is more associated with malicious and intentional nasty. But anyway, let's just play with the words as if he didn't say evil, he said bad. So beyond good and bad. Beyond good and bad just breaks the idea of what we are. You can't say it like there's any way you could surpass the very function of the organism. The very function of your organs is to create syndromes of good and bad, to create the necessity of it, the existence of it in your sentient being, a sense of it. You sense good and bad in the world. You feel it right through you. And it is in your very nature to express, to create the existence of this good and bad in terms of your sensate disposition. You're either in a good mood or a bad mood. Now we can go through the 5 million other good feeling versus bad feeling, good relationship versus bad relationship. They're all manifestations of our psychology expressing the mechanism. Doing a little flood repair damage. Expressing, this is a little dangerous for me, considering my vertigo problem. End up being swept downstream. There it goes. Alright, fix that problem. Anyway, fixing problems. That's the nature of us. That's the nature of our condition. Nietzsche uses those words in certain places, this idea of the fixing. But it's always in the wrong context. It's always not realizing that we are the broken that comes into the world. We break the peace and quiet with our desire. And our will to power is merely a will to satiate the desire. It's not something bigger than that. It's not more magnificent than that. It's not grander than that. Let's see what else to say. So anyway, but it's just all this wordplay, all this taking advantage of the imprecise vocabulary. So we're back to this word problem, and it's only because words have been broken by human beings through time, through even their ignorance of their creation, and Nietzsche just takes advantage of the vagueness of these words. And that's really horrific. Unfortunately, it is kind of irritating how many bad translations there are out there. Because that's the other problem. He's speaking another language, and you can see passages written in different by different interpretations, and meanings change rather substantially. Because in one version, in one translation they use the word spirit, and in the other translation they use the word mind, and in the other translation it uses the word intelligence. So in 3 different translations I saw intelligence, spirit, and mind being interchanged. Ooh, that's sort of a problem, because those 3 things really aren't the same thing. Mind isn't anything, short of another word for brain maybe, but playing the game that mind is a word worthy of playing with, I don't think is useful. Sorry about the noise of the stream and everything, but it's nature. Now I got the birds. Pretty soon I'll have the cicadas, so I'll be yelling over them. They'll be so loud. Anyway, if they don't die now or soon, they really should be popping out any day now. Anyway, so where was I? So yeah, this is there's some things that Nietzsche says. I mean, it's a nice read. Some of the poetry of it, some of the, it's very interestingly written. I didn't like reading it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like it because it's not direct, and I like direct statements. But it is incredibly, it's like a story-ish, it has he says nothing with an awful lot of words. I guess I don't know how to say that. The sentences connect to each other. There is a story there, but it's so dependent on metaphor and his own violation of the very thing he's saying. It's like here he says something like, there are no axioms, and he says that as if it's an axiom, as if that's the truth, as if we can rely on that truth. And you're just like, well, how does that make any sense? How can you say it is the truth that there is no truth? You can't really do that. And then you go on to make your argument from a whole bunch of premises that you have veiled in this, sort of vague description of something like honor. So you throw out the word honor, and it is a word we're all going to trip on, because it has a mystique, a thing about it. But it too is a word that has no hard, it's easily unveiled for what might lie behind it, which is egoism. Just a desperate effort to be something. Not a will to conquer, but you being conquered by your own sense of inadequacy or some need to, fulfill some standard of accomplishment. So in that sense, honor would be failure. Honor would be being owned, by some insecurity, that was the only thing that compelled you to be all you could be. So you're not even being all you could be out of hard principle, but merely to satisfy the idea of getting another one of your badges, your Boy Scout badges or something. Like it's on the list of the things you're supposed to have, so I have to go out and get some of that. So I have that, so I have a complete, I have the complete set. Like you're collecting glassware or something, and you have to get the complete set. So it's sort of a fake also. It's, something that can't be used as a premise for purpose. I don't want to get too wrapped up in stuff, but clearly you can't get beyond good and bad. Good and bad are bad and unbad is the nature of our function. It's a property of being sensate, of sensing the good and bad in things. It's just the way we work. You can't get beyond it. You can't escape it. It will own some major part of you. Ooh, the house is open. Shouldn't be that. Ow, might be koala bears in here or something. I guess I'll have to go look. Any koala bears in here? Hello, koala bears. Any koala bears in here? Look at the squirrels on the attic. Koala bears. Get the mold off the wall. Koala bear. Koala bear. Roof! No, wasn't nothing there. Okay, good. No koala bears got in. Knuckles still hurts. Scrape the skin off my knuckles. And it's just a terrible place to get a wound because it never heals. Because you're always bending your knuckle. And so it just takes forever to get better. Anyway, sorry about the ending here, a little sloppy. So till next time, maybe I'll read some comments on Mike Boyle's video. He had a whole interchange with DoNotGod. DoNotGod did a video, but there's no content in it, so I can't really say much to it. But he feels no obligation to interact with me, which is fine. But the challenge still exists. I'm still going to challenge his propaganda. These really do look like tomatoes, and I thought they were marigolds. Yeah, let's see what happens. Really not doing that well. The weather was really good. It hasn't been bad. It's better in the winter, but it just hasn't been